The night was heavy with rain, the kind that swallowed sound and blurred the city into streaks of silver and gold. Water poured from the heavens like a cleansing flood, washing over the empty streets of Manhattan. Inside the towering glass structure of Aurelia Industries, the reflections of the storm danced across marble floors polished to perfection. Elena Carter stepped through the automatic doors, her heels striking rhythmically, echoing through the vast silent lobby. She was late, coming back from a board meeting that had stretched into the night. Her sleek black coat clung to her shoulders, drops of rain still sliding down the expensive fabric. To the world, Elena Carter was an icon of success, a self-made billionaire, founder of one of the most powerful tech companies in the country. Her image was flawless, her control absolute. Yet beneath the power, the elegance, and the headlines, there was a part of her that had long stopped breathing freely. 6 years ago, she had chosen ambition over everything else. She remembered that night as clearly as if it had been yesterday. The fight with Daniel had been ugly. Words thrown like knives, dreams colliding like storms. He had begged her to slow down, to be present for their little daughter Lily, who had cried quietly at the top of the stairs while her parents tore their marriage apart below. Elena had told herself that one day when her company succeeded, she'd make things right. But the years passed, her empire grew, and the distance between her and the two people she loved most stretched into something impossible to cross. Her mansion was enormous, her life glittered with awards and interviews, but when the cameras turned off, the silence felt like punishment. The sound of rain tapping against the glass windows brought her back to the present. She shook off the memory, forcing herself into her usual calm. Success didn't allow space for regret. She adjusted her coat and nodded briefly to the night guard at the reception. "Good evening, Miss Carter," he said with a polite smile. "Rough weather tonight." "Seems so," she replied, her voice as poised as ever. "Make sure no one's left outside. It's dangerous in this rain." The guard hesitated, then looked toward the corner of the lobby. "Actually, ma'am, there's something I should tell you." Elena raised an eyebrow. "What is it?" "There's a man and a young girl sitting near the service entrance. They came in about 20 minutes ago, asking if they could wait out the storm. They looked like they'd been through a lot. Said they had nowhere else to go. The security staff checked and they didn't seem dangerous, so we let them stay in the lobby." Her instinctive response was one of irritation. This wasn't a shelter. Her company had protocols and strangers weren't allowed to loiter in her building, especially at night. But before she could respond, the guard added something that froze her in place. "They said they used to know you, ma'am." The words struck her like a thunderclap. She turned sharply, her heels scraping the floor. "What did you say?" The guard looked uncomfortable, sensing her sudden tension. "The man mentioned your name when we asked if he had any connection here. Said you knew each other a long time ago. I thought maybe it was just someone exaggerating, but..." Elena didn't hear the rest. Her pulse quickened. Something deep inside her, something buried under years of control and silence, began to stir. Slowly, she walked across the lobby, her eyes scanning the shadows near the far corner. The sound of the rain outside softened, replaced by the faint hum of air conditioning and the rhythmic tap of her heels. And then she saw them. A man sat hunched on one of the leather benches, his arm protectively around a small girl curled up beside him. His clothes were damp, his hair disheveled, and though he was thinner, older, and rougher around the edges than the man she remembered, Elena knew that face instantly. Daniel, her ex-husband. Her breath caught painfully in her throat. He looked nothing like the man who used to hold her hand on Sunday mornings, who laughed with their daughter in the park, who once promised her a love that would outlast the world. His eyes were closed, exhaustion etched across his features, and next to him sat a girl with golden brown hair tied in a messy braid. The child's face was half buried in his coat, her small hands gripping his sleeve tightly. For a moment, Elena couldn't move. The world around her seemed to fade away, the bright lobby lights dimming into a tunnel of memories. She saw Lily as a toddler again, her chubby hands reaching out to touch the stars painted on her bedroom ceiling. She heard Daniel's laughter echoing in the kitchen, teasing her about working too late again, and she felt the echo of that final door slam, the moment everything ended. Her assistant, Sophia, stepped out from the elevator, startled to see her frozen there. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Elena blinked, snapping back to reality. "Who authorized them to stay?" "I did," Sophia said carefully. "The storm flooded part of the east side. Most shelters are full tonight. They didn't seem to have anywhere else to go." Elena took a step forward, her voice low. "Did they give names?" Sophia nodded, glancing at the file she held. Daniel Carter, and his daughter Lily Carter. The sound of those names, her names, made Elena's chest tighten so hard she could barely breathe. Her hands trembled before she quickly hid them in her coat pockets. She hadn't heard those names spoken together in years. It was as if the universe had twisted the storm just to place them here, under her roof after all this time. Her mind raced. What was Daniel doing here after 6 years of silence? Why was he in this state, seeking shelter in her company of all places? Had he fallen so low? And Lily, how old was she now? 10, 11? The thought of her little girl, cold and scared, sleeping in a corner while Elena stood surrounded by luxury, was almost unbearable. For the first time in years, the power, the wealth, the control, none of it mattered. She wasn't the billionaire founder of Aurelia Industries anymore. She was just Elena, the woman who had walked away from the only two people who had ever truly loved her. She exhaled shakily, whispering to no one. After 6 years? Then with unsteady steps she began to walk toward them. Elena's heart pounded as she took slow, measured steps toward the corner of the lobby where her past sat waiting. The marble floor gleamed beneath her heels, but she barely noticed it. Every step felt heavier, as though the air itself had thickened around her. When she was only a few feet away, Daniel stirred. He blinked, disoriented at first, then straightened, instinctively putting himself between her and the little girl asleep beside him. The moment his tired eyes found hers, the years seemed to vanish. They simply stared at each other. Two people who had once shared a home, a life, a promise, and then lost everything. The silence was suffocating, but in it lived 1,000 words neither could say. "Elena?" His voice was rough, deeper than she remembered, and cracked from exhaustion. Hearing him say her name after 6 years felt strange, like touching an old wound that never quite healed. She wanted to answer, but the words caught in her throat. Her gaze dropped to the child at his side. Lily was asleep, her head resting against Daniel's chest, her small fingers clutching his sleeve. Her shoes were soaked, and her jacket looked worn and too small for her. Despite that, her face was peaceful, framed by tangled strands of golden brown hair that looked so heartbreakingly familiar. Elena's eyes filled with tears she didn't expect. That was her daughter, her little girl. The same child she had kissed goodbye on the night she left, promising to visit soon, a promise she had never kept. "She's beautiful," Elena whispered, her voice trembling. Daniel followed her gaze, his expression softening for a brief second before it hardened again. "She takes after you," he said quietly, then looked away. "What are the odds, huh? Ending up in your building of all places." Elena swallowed hard, unsure what to say. The sound of the rain outside filled the silence between them. She finally spoke, her tone gentler now. "Why are you here, Daniel?" "What happened?" He gave a bitter laugh and shook his head. "You mean after you left?" "Life happened." His eyes flickered toward the glass doors where the storm still howled. "The company I worked for shut down a few years ago. Lily and I have been getting by, but the apartment flooded tonight. The shelter nearby was full, so we came here to get out of the rain. I didn't even realize this was your building until the security guard mentioned your name. Elena's chest tightened. The thought of Daniel and Lily struggling while she lived in luxury was unbearable. You should have called me, she said softly, almost pleadingly. He looked at her, disbelief and frustration in his eyes. Called you? After 6 years of silence? You made it clear you didn't want us holding you back. His words cut deeper than he probably intended. Elena lowered her gaze, guilt spreading through her like wildfire. She remembered that night, the argument that had ended everything. Daniel had begged her not to miss Lily's school recital, saying she was choosing work over family again. But she had already been halfway out the door, clutching her laptop bag, her voice cold and defensive. I'm building a future for us, she had said. One day you'll understand. But that future had come at a price. Now, standing before him, she wondered if any of it had been worth it. The billion-dollar deals, the fame, the power, none of it filled the emptiness she felt every night when she came home to silence. And now, the very man and child she'd left behind stood before her, looking like survivors of a storm she had created long ago. Elena knelt down slowly beside Lily. She brushed a strand of wet hair from the girl's forehead, her fingers trembling as she touched her for the first time in 6 years. Lily stirred, opening her sleepy eyes. For a moment she looked confused, blinking up at the elegant woman kneeling before her. Dad? She murmured. Daniel rested a reassuring hand on her shoulder. It's okay, sweetheart, he said softly. We're safe. The girl turned back to Elena, her gaze curious. Who are you? She asked. Elena felt her breath catch. Her throat tightened as she whispered, I'm someone who used to know your dad. Lily studied her face, and after a few seconds her eyes widened slightly. You look like the lady in the picture, she said. The one Dad keeps on the shelf. Daniel closed his eyes briefly as though the words hurt. Elena's tears slipped free before she could stop them. You still have that photo? She asked. He nodded without looking at her. Lily liked it. She'd ask who you were. I never told her much. Didn't seem fair to make her miss something she could never have back. Elena's voice broke. I'm sorry, she whispered. For everything. Daniel finally looked at her again, his expression unreadable. Sorry doesn't change what happened. No, it doesn't, she said softly. But maybe it's a start. For a long moment, the three of them sat in silence. The only sound was the rain outside and the hum of the building's lights. Elena wanted to say more, but every word she thought of felt too small, too late. She wanted to ask about Lily's life, her school, her favorite color, the things she had missed while chasing success. But she couldn't bring herself to. She didn't deserve those answers yet. Daniel sighed and shifted his weight. Look, we'll be out of your hair by morning. I don't want any trouble. Elena shook her head quickly. No, please stay. The roads are flooded and it's dangerous out there. I'll have a room prepared for you both upstairs. Daniel frowned. That's not necessary. It is, she said firmly. At least for tonight. He hesitated, pride warring with exhaustion. Then with a quiet nod he agreed. Just for the night. As Elena stood, she noticed Lily watching her with wide, curious eyes. The girl gave her a small, shy smile, the same kind of smile she used to give when she was 2, holding up a crayon drawing for her mother's praise. Elena's heart ached. She returned the smile, though it trembled at the corners. Later, as the staff led Daniel and Lily to a guest suite upstairs, Elena stood alone in the lobby, staring after them. The storm outside still raged, but she barely heard it. For years she had buried the memory of that family, convincing herself that she had done what was necessary. But tonight, as she watched them disappear into the elevator, something inside her broke. She realized that no amount of money or achievement could erase the loneliness she had created. And now, fate had brought her face to face with the life she had abandoned. Soaked, shivering, and seeking shelter under her roof. Elena walked slowly toward the glass wall overlooking the city, her reflection faint against the dark skyline. For the first time in years, her eyes were wet, and her heart whispered a truth she had long refused to face. Success had made her powerful, but seeing Daniel and Lily again made her feel human. The next morning arrived softly, the world outside still gray from the storm. The rain had eased into a drizzle that tapped gently against the massive glass windows of Aurelia Industries. Elena hadn't slept a minute. She had spent the entire night in her office, staring at the security monitor that showed the small lounge where Daniel and Lily were resting. Every now and then she'd see Daniel shift uncomfortably on the couch or Lily curl up tighter against him, her small frame wrapped in one of the company's blankets. Watching them like that made something ache inside her chest, something deeper than regret. It was longing, a longing for the life she had let slip away. When dawn began to break, painting the sky in pale shades of silver and peach, Elena finally stood up. She straightened her clothes, fixed her hair, and took a deep breath before walking down the corridor toward the lounge. Each step echoed like a question she didn't know how to answer. She paused outside the door, her hand hovering just above the handle. She could still walk away, pretend this never happened, but she couldn't, not anymore. Slowly she pushed the door open. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the air conditioner. Daniel sat awake, his head resting against the wall, eyes half closed from fatigue. He looked up the moment she entered, wary but not hostile. Lily was still asleep, her small face turned toward the window. Sunlight slipped through the blinds, touching her cheeks and turning her hair into strands of gold. Elena felt her throat tighten again. "I brought you some coffee," she said quietly, holding 2 cups. Daniel hesitated before taking one, his fingers brushing against hers for just a second. The touch sent a jolt through her, a reminder of something that once felt like home. "Thanks," he murmured. He took a sip, then sighed. "You didn't have to come down here yourself." "I wanted to," she said. "I couldn't sleep." Daniel nodded, his eyes studying her carefully. "You always were restless. Even when everything was fine, you were still thinking about the next deal, the next project." She gave a small, sad smile. "And look where it got me." He didn't answer right away. He just stared at the rising sun through the blinds. "You built an empire, Elena, that's something." "It's something," she repeated softly. "But it's not everything." The silence stretched between them again, thick with memories neither dared to speak aloud. Then Lily stirred, her little voice sleepy and sweet. "Dad?" she whispered, rubbing her eyes. Daniel leaned down. "I'm here, sweetheart." Her gaze drifted toward Elena and she blinked a few times as though trying to place her. "You're still here," she said innocently. Elena smiled, her heart aching. "Yes, I'm still here." Lily yawned and sat up, the blanket falling to her lap. "This place is really pretty," she said, looking around. "Is it your office?" Elena nodded. "It is. I work here every day." "Wow," Lily said, her voice full of genuine wonder. "Dad said you make computers that help people talk from really far away." Elena laughed softly. "Something like that." She wanted to reach out to smooth Lily's hair, to feel the warmth of her daughter's presence. But she hesitated, afraid of crossing a line that might break the fragile peace between them. Lily looked between her parents, sensing the tension in a way only children could. "Do you know my mom?" she asked suddenly. Daniel froze, his coffee halfway to his lips. He opened his mouth to speak, but Elena interrupted, her voice trembling but steady. "Yes," she said. "I know her very well." "Where is she?" Lily asked. Elena glanced at Daniel, her eyes silently pleading for permission. He looked torn but finally gave a small nod. Elena turned back to her daughter. "She's here," she whispered. "I'm your mom, Lily." The little girl blinked, confusion clouding her face. "You?" Elena nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm sorry you didn't know sooner. I should have been there. I should never have left. Lily stared at her, her small lips parting slightly. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, to Elena's shock, she simply leaned closer, studying her face with quiet curiosity. You look like me, she said softly. That simple sentence shattered the wall inside Elena. She let out a choked laugh and nodded, tears spilling freely now. I do. You have my eyes. Daniel turned away, pretending to look at the window, but Elena saw him wipe at his cheek. Lily hesitated, then did something Elena never expected. She crawled off the couch and walked over, stopping right in front of her. For a second she looked unsure, as if she didn't know what to do. Then slowly she wrapped her arms around Elena's waist. Elena froze, breath catching in her throat, before she knelt and pulled Lily into her arms. It was the first time in 6 years she had held her daughter. The moment felt unreal. The scent of her hair, the warmth of her small hands, the steady heartbeat against her chest. Everything she'd been missing, every sleepless night, every quiet regret, all of it melted away in that embrace. Daniel stood silently, watching them. His expression was unreadable, caught somewhere between heartbreak and relief. Elena looked up at him, still holding Lily, and whispered, I missed everything. I missed her first day of school, her birthdays, her laughter. I missed you both, he sighed, his voice quiet. You made your choice, Elena. I know, she said. And it was the wrong one. Lily looked up at her with innocent eyes. Are you going to stay now? The question hit Elena like a knife. She wanted to say yes, wanted to promise she'd never leave again. But the truth was complicated, tangled with years of pain and distance. Still, she couldn't bear to disappoint her again. She brushed a tear from Lily's cheek and said softly, I'll try, sweetheart. I'll try to make things right. Later that morning, as Daniel packed up their few belongings, Elena insisted they stay longer. The storm's not over yet, she said. Let me help, please. He looked at her for a long moment before nodding reluctantly. One night, maybe two. As they left the lounge together, the staff paused, whispering in confusion at the sight of their powerful boss walking beside a man and a child who didn't belong in her polished world. But Elena didn't care. For the first time in years, she wasn't thinking about her reputation or her next deal. She was thinking about them, about what it might mean to have them back in her life. When Daniel and Lily disappeared into the guest suite upstairs, Elena lingered in the empty hallway. Her hands still trembled from holding her daughter. Her heart felt raw, exposed but alive. She knew this wouldn't be easy. 6 years couldn't be erased overnight. But as the morning light filled the building, she felt something she hadn't felt in a very long time. A fragile, trembling kind of hope. For once, she wasn't the billionaire who ruled over empires of glass and steel. She was just a woman who had been given one more chance to love the family she lost. The morning sun spilled through the wide glass windows, turning the lobby into a soft glow of gold. The storm had passed, leaving behind the scent of rain and a fragile calm. For Elena, it felt like the world itself had been washed clean, though her heart still carried the storm's residue. She stood by the window of her office, staring down at the city below. Cars moved slowly through the damp streets. People hurried along the sidewalks, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel above it all. She felt human, fragile, uncertain. Her reflection in the glass looked the same as always, composed, confident, successful. But beneath that calm exterior, she was trembling. She turned when she heard a knock. Daniel stepped into her office, still wearing the same worn clothes from the night before. His hair was damp from the quick shower he had taken in the guest room, and though he looked tired, there was a quiet strength about him. Lily wasn't with him. She was downstairs in the cafeteria eating pancakes with one of the employees. The sight of him standing there brought back a rush of memories. Laughter in their old kitchen, lazy Sunday mornings, the warmth of his arms when life used to be simple. You look different, he said quietly. his eyes scanning the sleek space around him. All this, it's impressive. You really made it. Elena gave a faint smile, though her voice was soft. I made it, yes. But sometimes I wonder what I actually built. She gestured toward the massive office, the glass desk, the art on the walls, the awards that glittered in their frames. None of this feels as heavy as what I lost. Daniel didn't answer. He just stood there, hands in his pockets, looking at her with that same calm patience she had once taken for granted. Finally, he said, You always wanted to change the world, Elena. You just didn't realize you were changing yourself too. She met his eyes, and for a moment she couldn't breathe. I was so sure I was doing the right thing, she whispered. I thought if I succeeded I could give you both the life you deserved. I told myself I was sacrificing time for something greater. But it wasn't greater, was it? It was just further away. He sighed and leaned against the edge of her desk. We were happy once. Maybe not rich, but happy. You didn't need to build an empire for us. We just needed you. Her chest tightened. She looked away, blinking back tears. Do you think it's too late? She asked softly. For me to be part of her life again? Daniel hesitated before answering. Lily's young, but she's smart. She's missed you even if she doesn't realize it fully. If you're really ready to be there, she'll let you in. But you have to mean it this time. I do, Elena said firmly, more than anything. He studied her for a long moment, searching her face for the truth. Whatever he saw there made him relax slightly. Then start small, he said. She doesn't need the billionaire version of you. She just needs her mom. Elena nodded, her heart swelling with both pain and gratitude. And what about you? She asked hesitantly. Do you hate me? He gave a small, weary smile. I did for a while. But hate takes too much out of you. I moved on, or at least I thought I did. Then last night, seeing you again. He stopped, looking out the window. It brought everything back. The good and the bad. Elena took a slow step closer. I never stopped caring about you, Daniel. I just didn't know how to come back. He turned to her, his eyes soft but guarded. Then maybe now's your chance. But don't say you care if you're going to disappear again. I won't, she whispered. Not this time. For a while, neither of them spoke. The city moved quietly outside, the sound of life echoing faintly from below. Then came a light knock, followed by the soft patter of footsteps. Lily peeked into the office, a bit of syrup still on her cheek. Dad, they gave me chocolate milk, she said excitedly, then spotted Elena and smiled shyly. Hi, Elena's heart melted. Hi, sweetheart, she said gently. Did you like breakfast? Lily nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, they even had strawberries. She hesitated, then walked closer. Dad said you're really good at building things. Do you think you could show me how your company works? Elena's throat tightened. Of course. I'd love to show you. Lily grinned, and in that instant the office that had always felt cold and sterile suddenly felt alive. Elena took her small hand, guiding her to the large glass table where a model of the company's newest satellite design sat. She explained in simple words what it did, and Lily's eyes sparkled with fascination. Daniel watched them from a distance, quiet but smiling, a look of pride and something softer flickering in his eyes. When they were done, Lily turned to her father. Can we come back here again sometime? She asked. Daniel looked at Elena, unsure how to answer. But Elena stepped forward. You can come any time you want, she said softly. Both of you. Lily beamed, and before either adult could react, she hugged her mother again. Elena bent down, holding her close, closing her eyes as tears spilled silently down her cheeks. For the first time in 6 years, she didn't feel like she was pretending. She didn't feel like she was playing the role of the unshakable billionaire. She just felt like herself, a mother, flawed but trying, finally trying. A few hours later, when Daniel and Lily were ready to leave, Elena walked them to the entrance. The sun had broken through the clouds and the city glowed under its warmth. Daniel picked up their small bag and turned to her. "We'll find a new place today," he said. "I'll get in touch once we're settled." Elena nodded, her voice soft. "Daniel, I'd like to help if you'll let me." He hesitated. "We'll be fine." "I know you will," she said, stepping closer. "But maybe I don't want to just watch from a distance this time." He looked at her for a long moment, then finally gave a small, tired smile. "Maybe it's time to stop running from what we were," he said. "Maybe it's time to start over." Elena felt something warm spread through her chest. "I'd like that," she said quietly. As Daniel took Lily's hand and they started toward the exit, Lily turned back one last time, waving. "Bye, Mom," she called, her voice bright and full of joy. Elena's eyes filled again, but this time her tears weren't from sadness. "Goodbye, sweetheart," she whispered. They stepped out into the sunlight, and for a moment Elena just stood there watching them. Then Daniel looked back and smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried both forgiveness and hope. She smiled too, her heart lighter than it had been in years. As the doors closed behind them, Elena turned to look at her reflection in the glass. The woman who stared back wasn't the same one who had built an empire at the cost of her soul. She was someone new, someone ready to rebuild the only thing that ever truly mattered. And for the first time in 6 long years, Elena Carter felt free.